back to Atypical Talk. This is a podcast where we have conversations that illuminate the intersection of faith, culture, and the common spaces of our humanity. I'm Abby.
I'm Joel.
I'm Kenton.
And our first question today is, if you had 10 extra hours in a week, what would you spend it doing?
Sleeping.
Okay, that's off the table. You can't say sleeping.
No.
That's the boring answer.
It's just like, it literally...
Every adult answer.
It's just having...
Yeah.
We have just had a rough go of it at home with our little ones all sleeping. And it's just like, I read that question and I go immediately, if I could like get a couple extra hours of sleep every night or even an hour extra sleep, oh man. And, the worst part about having kids is you think that if you get them, if they stay up later, they're going to sleep later. It's actually the opposite in our house. Like they wake up at the same time or sometimes even earlier, and they're just more miserable because they're not rested.
Yeah.
And so sleep, that's my answer, but it's not real. We have to think deeper. What do you guys think? What did you guys say?
I think I just want to be able to spend more time outside, whether that's taking walks, working on my yard, trying to have a garden, something like that. Because I feel like all the time I'm like wanting to go outside and do stuff. And then by the time I'm like, okay, I've gotten everything done. I've washed the dishes. Dinner's all done. I can go spend some time outside. I look, I'm like, oh, the sun's setting. It's going to be dark in like 10 minutes, And so I think having that would be awesome.
Yeah, I actually said to my wife either yesterday or this morning, what a waste it is for the sun to be up right now when it's only like 20, 25. Right. It was like 16 degrees this morning. So yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Like outdoor time with family. Yeah. Like I would absolutely, especially now that I'm just itching to be outdoors more and more.
Mm-hmm.
We're coming out of the winter blahs, and we're still in fake spring, but we know that real spring is coming. So
Yep.
Being outside.
All
Interesting.
Right. Did you have a real answer?
Yeah, now you have
that was my real answer, but you said it's not real. So as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking 10 extra hours a week, I feel like I would use those just doing anything with my family.
Yeah.
So I feel like, outdoors is great, but just extra time playing, extra time not in the routine of dinner, bedtime routine, but just other kind of times. I think that would be
for
really,
you. That's
really great.
Like you could go to the movie theater and watch like 3 whole movies in that amount of time.
Yeah, that could definitely make that work when there's movies out that I really want to see.
Yeah.
But no, I can't squeeze that. I can't squeeze that in.
Yeah. Our first topic today is a Seattle Times article titled "Hustle Culture is History. Well-being is the new workplace trend to watch." The rise of hustle culture that glorified relentless productivity and long work hours is giving way to a new workplace trend focused on employee well-being. Driven by Gen Z's values, companies are rethinking productivity metrics, offering more flexible schedules, and even experimenting with 4-day work weeks. Employees are finding ways to work smarter, not harder, and prioritizing work-life balance and mental health over grinding it out for a paycheck. The rejection of hustle culture isn't about rejecting work itself, but redefining what work should be, fulfilling, balanced, and supportive of a full life. Quiet quitting has been a rising trend as well. Quiet quitters fulfill their job responsibilities, but nothing more. They don't stay late to finish a project, take work home with them, or go the extra mile to earn brownie points. Employers that resist this shift may struggle to attract and retain talent, as Gen Z prioritizes jobs that align with their values and allow them to maintain a healthy work-life integration. So if someone came to you and said that they were really struggling creating a work-life balance, what would you suggest to them?
I think the first thing I would ask would be what is an ideal work-life balance? I like the language of the article, work-life integration. What does that look like ideally? Mm-hmm. I think sometimes I talk to people that their goal is unrealistic for the work that they're in or for the type of degree that they have, and they basically don't want a lot of times I'll talk to people that they want a job that they're very passionate about and they feel like they're making a difference, but they don't want to have any mental or emotional load from that job after hours. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't know if that's completely possible, to care so deeply and then turn off the caring as soon as you leave all the time. But I think there are ways to integrate in a lot of ways and boundaries that you can set so that I would start with like asking, what does it ideally look like? Is this possible in your line of work? Is this possible with the degree that you have or the experience that you have in the workplace? And where would that be possible? Asking them like, where do they see that possibility, and is that realistic? And then beyond that, I think it's been healthy for me to think beyond the binaries of, work, life, and sort of cutting it off cold, like as soon as you leave the room, and more thinking about what boundaries are you going to set for yourself and for your family. And do you understand that every job has ebbs and flows of extra work and extra time, and where can you flex in a lot of ways?
Yeah.
So I would start by asking some of those questions and having them maybe think through the categories a little differently than this dream reality of work and life, and thinking more of the ebbs and flows and how can you flex, and are you taking advantage of those downtimes more often as you could. So I would start by maybe taking a couple steps back inside of that. But it's an interesting conversation, something we all struggle with, and trying to find the right fit for us, because I don't think it's a one size fits all either, but it's a good conversation to have.
Yeah. Kenton, is there anything specific that you or your wife do to maintain a work-life balance?
No, I mean, we struggle with it just like everybody else does.
It's an everybody thing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's in seasons, it's way more complicated than other times. From just personal experience, not speaking for my wife necessarily, but I mean, coming from, a public accounting world and things like that, there were just entire seasons where there just isn't
tax season,
right?
Yeah.
During tax time, there just isn't work-life balance.
Yeah. It's a run. It's a marathon.
I mean, there were many years where I worked, so many hours in a day that I would like sleep in my car or barely make it home, and get 2 hours of sleep and turn around and do it all again. There is some reality, I think, where that's, and Joel, I think, hinted towards this, that's dependent on job and job location too.
Yeah.
And not like physical location, but just your employer, I guess. Because I've done tax season at 2 major employers, and one was way more hours, way harder work. The other one was way more balanced, way more structured. I had set hours, and like I just stuck to those. And then I think there's just the reality of like, when you set boundaries, you decide for you, within the context of your employment and what your career is, how hard it is to set those boundaries, and then you just have to set the hard boundaries.
Which might mean that you can't work at that place and hold to your own boundary, which is the hard thing that nobody, I think, wants to come to. But when
boundaries
you have
are some
those
of the hardest conversations you can have, and not, I mean, work boundaries, boundaries with, a significant other, anything like that, friendships, like they are some of the hardest conversations. But yeah, that might mean that it doesn't work at that employer, and that might mean, a different job, or that might mean, or maybe you think it won't work, but it still might. But you have to have the challenging conversation and just say that this is the thing that I'm going to do. So yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's really hard to set boundaries.
I think it's interesting that you talked about having 2 different experiences working in accounting, the same job, but it was a very different experience under different managers and different work. Maybe that can be encouraging for somebody to think like, well, this is just always what it is everywhere. And there you have like a tax job in 2 different employers. And not that one was easy and one was hard, but one actually leaned towards balance and the other didn't. So you don't know what you don't know. So don't just assume.
The better balanced job was at the significantly harder job. It just was better structured for life. It didn't make the job. The job was way more stressful. But I did it in fewer amounts of hours. I took it home a lot more with me, which is a whole other boundary discussion. But like you said, sometimes that's like what people, when they think of like, when they think of boundaries or whatever, they're like, well, I want to walk in the door and it fade away. And like, to some extent that can do, and you can really push hard to do it. And I do every day, try so hard to walk in the door and shut it off. and I'm successful 50-50. but yeah, it's not always that. So you've got to find the few things that you really value and then just push hard.
Yeah. I've heard the term quiet quitting thrown around, but what did you guys think of it as defined in the article?
I'm just an old guy when it comes to this. So I don't know. I mean, I get where it's coming from of not being taken advantage of in that regard. I struggle, and this is probably just from my experience and working mostly in nonprofit church life, but I'm just like, it just doesn't seem to have a higher calling, bigger purpose behind it, to where the idea of like, I just feel like all the time it would just not have the bigger goal there, and it wouldn't feel very team oriented. It would feel very me oriented. And it's not like staying up late to finish a project is like a norm in it, but like there are just runs in it to where that's just a part of it where you put in more time. And the other thing, like I do appreciate inside of, people that are quiet quitting, saying they're not doing things or taking things the extra mile to earn brownie points. I don't think that's ever the right motivation to work, is to like curry favor with somebody or to like have some kind of upward mobility. But I would hope that everybody works hard and goes the extra mile for the bigger calling and the bigger purpose. And also, like, if they are Christians, if they're Christ followers, like, we don't work for our managers or even our company, but we're ultimately working for Jesus as an act of worship. So give 100%, give 100% where it's needed. Now, the balance to this is that people, can be taken advantage of and can be doing a lot more and not being honored or taken in that way. So I hear that, but I just like, I'm just an old person when it comes to this. I'm always like, just do it. Is what my attitude, but trying to listen and learn, I'm trying to learn more.
I think the biggest thing for me is having a workplace that respects you. Then you're more inclined to go the extra mile and maybe occasionally take work home or stay late and things like that. But if you have a work place that is taking advantage of you and expecting you to do this all the time, but not appreciating you, then you don't have as much, you're not as inclined to go ahead and take those extra miles. Yeah.
I mean, I think I agree with that. I think somewhat in opposition to maybe what Joel said, and trying to be not an old man. I think it depends on what side of the coin you're looking at and who's telling you that it's quiet quitting. Because from like the employee perspective, it's one thing. It's probably closer to what Joel was describing, I would say, and not actively trying to do the right thing. But I think honestly, the article kind of, I read it as like the employer side and like saying that people are quiet quitting.
Oh yeah.
And I think that can be really dangerous, because I think sometimes that's a destructive name for boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
it's like a weaponized way
it's
of
like
saying,
weaponized boundaries, or trying to make it seem bad. Because honestly, some of the examples that the article used were like not going the extra mile. And in my opinion, to what Abby said, like, if you feel respected, a lot of times you may go the extra mile. But also, like, that phrase literally means like going above and beyond what was asked of you. Yeah. So like, I don't think you're doing it wrong by not going above what is actually asked of you in your job, So I think it's just, it can be a bad thing. It can be a horrible thing to just like fade off into existence. And not, I mean, if that means that you're pursuing something else or trying to find a different job, that's one thing. But like, not living up to your full potential just to spite your employer, that's negative. But also, I think it can be a negative way that employers talk about people who are honestly maybe trying to set good, hard, fast boundaries.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing about that phrase, the going the extra mile, being like, well, like, I'm doing exactly what you asked me to do. And sometimes, like, that exactly what you asked me to do might require some extra time. Yeah. And that's not mutually exclusive, in that way. So that's good. I never thought about, like, from employers, it can be a weaponized phrase just to be like, I don't like, they're not doing enough. They're quiet quitting.
Right.
But the other side is different. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, at the time that this episode is released, we are 10 days away from Easter, so I wanted to talk about some crazy Easter traditions around the world. This is a Wanderlust magazine article. While the U.S. has things like dyeing eggs in Easter baskets, there's some pretty wild Easter traditions around the world. In Australia, they have Easter bilbies, an attempt to raise awareness about the dwindling bilby population. Confectioners in Australia have taken to making chocolate likenesses of this small rabbit-sized marsupial instead of, the chocolate rabbits that we see around here. In France, they have the world's biggest omelet on Easter weekend. On Easter Monday, the residents of a small French town crack more than 4,500 eggs into a gigantic pan to create a massive Easter omelet that serves over 1,000 people. I looked up the size of the town. You can look at this in the article, but there's less than 1,000 people in the town, so I don't know.
Somebody gets seconds. They get seconds.
Feeding.
They get seconds, right?
Each family breaks the eggs in their homes in the morning, and they gather in the main square where the eggs are cooked for lunch and dinner and breakfast the next morning. Easter time is crime time in Norway. Television channels run crime shows, and a slew of new detective novels are commissioned to come out just before Easter.
It makes so much sense.
Yeah. People across the country escape into their mountain cabins and spend the weekend with the whodunit television shows or books. Even the milk cartons carry short detective stories on their side during the season. The phenomenon was triggered by the immense popularity of a crime novel in 1923. So which of these Easter traditions surprised you the most, and why?
For me, it was an Easter tradition in Papua New Guinea because instead of chocolate, since chocolate and sweet treats are not a big deal in that country, they have Easter trees that are a part of the celebration instead of baskets. And instead of the sweet things, they put different products of tobacco in the trees. So there's like cigarettes and chew and all different kinds of things they put in these trees. And they use them not only in their homes, but as places of worship leading up to Easter. So it's even mixed in with faith. So in churches, small trees are decorated with Marlboros and some chew and all the ridiculous things. And I just love this because this is so not like the American thing that we do, where you're not allowed to show people smoking on TV or say cigarettes basically anymore. And here we are in just a different country where it's a part of their worship and part of their Easter celebration. Here, little buddy, here, Billy, chew on this. It'll get you a good little buzz.
We worship Zen in the U.S.
Yeah, it'd be different kind of things. Yeah, it'd be more of a vape kind of tree in America today than this.
Yeah. The one that stuck out to me was the Great Easter Bunny Hunt in New Zealand.
This is wild.
Yeah, they just have hunters that go out and hunt Easter bunnies or hunt bunnies on Easter morning, and it says that over 500 people go out and kill over 10,000 rabbits.
Crazy.
That's crazy to me.
It's just a massacre, a genocide of rabbits. And I'm having it's interesting. I'm having some Christmas flashbacks here to the Christmas story in the Bible too, because, they're killing all these rabbits, but are they searching for the one true Easter bunny? They're searching for the one, but they're just killing all of them just so we're going to get him somehow.
Where's Waldo?
Yeah.
We'll find him.
We'll look for the special one.
They're considered an invasive pest.
Well, they are.
Yeah.
They are invasive, but just to get out your rifles and go on this massacre to kill every bunny that hops. Anything that hops dies.
Yeah.
If it hops, it dies.
Yeah. And so to piggyback off of that, here's my question for the group, because mine was the craziest one for me was the omelet. Mm-hmm. Because here's my question: does the Easter bunny lay eggs?
No.
I mean, yeah, I guess I've always just assumed, that's what happens, but that's really weird now that I'm thinking about animals. And
no, he gets the eggs from somewhere else. He's not laying the eggs.
No, the story of the Easter bunny is he lays eggs.
That's the traditional story.
It is, and I can't get over the thought of eating an omelet made of Easter bunny eggs. And
to celebrate Easter,
what are eggs but baby bunnies in this story? Or are they candy? Because now I'm really confused about how that works. But anyway, that's...
What a dark twist on Easter now with the hunting and then this omelet of all these eggs of the babies. And
it feels like Easter's a little more dark everywhere.
Yeah.
So did you guys have any fun Easter traditions as a kid, or any traditions you're starting with your own kids?
We were pretty white bread basic growing up with an Easter egg hunt in the front yard or the backyard. Pretty boring. Nothing really too crazy about it outside of, and we're doing the same with our kids too. We just have to watch really based on the temperature. And when we lay the eggs out, one year we put chocolate in there and we put them out before we went to church in the morning. So we could do it as soon as we got home, and we got into the eggs and like everything was melted. It was disgusting. Real gross looking too. And like Jack's still trying to eat like this little Reese's cup and it's gross. But yeah, that was basically our Easter tradition after church.
What about you, Kenton?
I mean, I would not say that there was any tradition when I was younger. I was a PC, pastor's kid, so a lot of it just revolved around going to church, which I guess is a wonderful tradition for the record. I don't want to say otherwise. And you should do. But yeah, I mean, we would Easter egg hunt at like my grandmother's house and stuff like that. But Lainey's family does, or my wife's family, they have a lot more traditional things that they do. So like her parents would give them gifts on Easter morning, like before they went to church together, and then they would have like a family Easter egg hunt and lunch together and stuff. So obviously we're in that tradition now, and so we go, and like Leo likes to Easter egg hunt and all of those kinds of things. I mean, he just likes to find things. He's almost 2, so finding things is
that's
awesome.
a huge part of the day.
So
yep.
Yeah.
We used to dye eggs every year.
I think we did that some. We did that some.
Thinking back, it's such a messy activity. Like my mom was letting me and my 8 siblings dye eggs and just letting us go crazy with it. That seems stressful to me now.
Yeah, I'm sure they were all really natural dyes, and they were
not dyeing eggs in this economy.
No, wasteful. So wasteful.
Then the Easter dinner deviled eggs are all different colors because the dye
really
got through.
The dye somehow broke through.
Yep.
Yes, that's funny.
No, but that was always so much fun.
Yeah.
So our last topic today, it's a Relevant magazine article titled, "No, You're Not a Bad Christian for Skipping Church. Everyone misses church from time to time, and sometimes we feel guilty and less of a Christian for missing. Church matters deeply, and you absolutely should go. You just shouldn't feel forced to show up out of begrudging obligation or guilt-driven anxiety. If church is reduced to an obligation, you're missing out on its entire point. Church at its best is far more than a Sunday gathering. It's meant to be a place of meaningful connection, authentic relationships, and honest conversations about faith, doubt, and everything in between. Church attendance itself is not the ultimate measure of spiritual health. Real spiritual growth comes from engaging deeply with other believers, not just physically occupying a seat. While occasionally absences are not a disaster, making it a habit can lead to feeling disconnected and spiritually lonely. The article encourages us to view church not as an obligation, but as a life-giving experience that shapes one's worldview and challenges one's comfort zone. Faith is not meant to be a solo journey." So Joel, you had sent this article. What about it stood out to you?
I loved the way that the author of this article just approached church and church attendance. I think that it is really easy to make church attendance a religious duty.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think I might have connected with this because I think growing up, when I was younger, I just sort of believed that attending church was religious duty. It was one of those things that you had to do, not something that you got to do. And then I fast forward 30 some years in my life, and now I have my own kids. And because I'm a pastor and this is like my job and vocation, it's a really interesting thing just having conversations with Megan about what we want to do with our kids and what we want them to explicitly and implicitly pick up about what church is. And so, yes, like church is a rhythm of our family, but every opportunity we have on Saturdays or on Saturday nights or even first thing Sunday morning, like, hey, we get to go to church today. We get to go see our friends. We get to go learn about Jesus. We get to help people, trying to like instill those reasons why. Because one of the things I loved in the article was talking about how missing church and can be one of those things that can disconnect us from God and others, but we should never go to church and not miss church out of obligation or guilt or shame. Talking about like you should never go out of begrudging obligation or guilt-driven anxiety. Like if I don't go, God's mad at me. And if I don't go, someone's going to say this and that and all that kind of stuff. And so it just really connected with me because I don't care really who knows this. I think church is great. I think church is great for you. I think it's actually the way Jesus talks about Sabbath in the New Testament really connects with me, because he talks about like Sabbath is for man, not man for the Sabbath. Like it's a gift for us to enjoy, not something that we should do because we feel like if we don't, God's going to punish us or we're going to be kicked out of his blessing in that way. So I love that. And I also love the balance about the importance of church attendance and how so often when it becomes a maybe, it just sort of slides out of the picture and we don't feel connected to people. We don't feel connected with what's going on. And we feel like ultimately we're disconnected from God. So I love that balance. And for me, like, even though my life is so built around church and gathering together in this community, I guess I'll make a confession here that a couple weeks ago, my family and I went to Southwest Florida for spring break, and it was over a Sunday, and I didn't go to church on Sunday. I know. And it was actually really beautiful and really good. And I woke up that morning. It was a slow morning, which Sundays are not slow days for us at all. And, you know, I got to like read the scriptures by myself, by water, and got to read something that I wasn't preparing to tell other people. So it was just very personal and really healthy for me, honestly. And, you know, and I don't feel guilty about it. I think it was a good break from the norm, and it does not mean that I'm not connected with my Creator, and it doesn't mean that I don't love my church family. So don't beat yourself up over it. Always look at the reason why we're doing things. And man, if you're going to church anywhere and it's a place where, you know, you feel like if you don't, then God's going to be mad at you, or you're going to like upset people because you are just not there that one morning, and that's the wrong reason to do it, out of guilt and out of shame. So yeah, I just connected so much with how the author brought balance to this and tried to kick guilt and shame out of the conversation, but while still elevating the gift and the value of being a part of a faith community.
Yeah. I really like where she talks about, I'll just read this paragraph here. It says, if lately you find yourself less excited or even indifferent about attending, maybe it's time to reflect honestly on why. It could be that the issue isn't you or church attendance itself, but the specific community you're a part of or the expectations you've placed on yourself. Perhaps you need to find a church environment that sparks your interest, renews your passion, and reminds you why you chose this journey in the first place. I think sometimes we stick with a church because, you know, our parents go there, or we have a few friends that we sometimes go with and get lunch after church with, you know, and we need to reflect, you know, if we're not enjoying the church, why is it, you know, it doesn't match up with our beliefs or what we think church should look like. And so sometimes you do have to make the hard decision to find a new church community that fits your needs.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because, I mean, with the background understanding that there's no such thing as a perfect church at all. If you think there's a perfect church, if you start going there, it will become imperfect as soon as you step in, right? Because that's just what we do. But, you know, we should be going to church because it, you know, connects with our heart, and it connects our heart to God's heart. And if there's something that's a disconnect and it's not lighting you up and it's not encouraging you to follow Jesus in between Sundays, then I think maybe you should interrogate, why are you there? And maybe the problem is not you and church attendance, but it's just your season with that community needs to come to an end so that you can thrive and move into the next season God has for you. But don't beat yourself up over it at all.
Yeah. So Kenton, what did you think about this?
So I think it bears repeating just kind of what Joel said, but I think there has been a lot of pain and hurt in the reality of this guilt of not going to church, and being a pastor's kid and growing up in church, and seeing kind of the behind the scenes stuff. I've seen that work out in a lot of people, and honestly, I think sometimes you see that maybe in our parents or our parents' age, and it kind of trickles down to this world of like why maybe kids or younger adults are not returning to church because they've just add it to the list of trauma and hurt. So yeah, I think there's a big reality in just the pain of all of that. But I mean, on the positive side, like slightly positive, slightly negative, I don't know about you guys, but it's very difficult to find adult friends or new friends as adults.
And you don't have the Friendster app where you swipe up for friends?
Yeah, because social media, dog.
That's
it's all
easy.
there, man.
It's easy. It's easy.
But no, I think that there's just a reality of Sunday mornings, and this goes along with what Abby said and what Joel said, but like the connections that you can make amongst peers and friends or family that happen on a Sunday morning, even if you don't go back every week or you miss a few weeks here or there, like to walk back in and see a friend or a smiling face or a connection, you may have texted them during the week, but there's just something about that connection, and it's like a reoccurring appointment every week almost, and sometimes it's hard on
to have a rhythm,
Tuesday
to make rhythm.
It's hard to do those kinds of things. So that's why like table groups or small groups or, Sunday mornings can be so valuable to not just, come and learn more about Jesus, of course, but also make those connections. And then the one last small thing, just because as a creative arts person and a worship person, like I just always feel like I have to say this. It can be hard during the week to worship. A lot of the acts we do during the week are our worship and the way that we carry ourselves and the way that we present Jesus to other people. But the act of like praise and worship for most people doesn't happen throughout the week. You might listen to some Christian music here or there. You might pray. Maybe it's not a thing that you do every day, every night, whatever. But Sunday mornings can help us get a reset, can help give us a space, 20, 30 minutes, an hour of just pure focus on those things. And I think that is just so valuable because although we carry our lives in worship, there's just that amazing time that we can spend one-on-one, but also amongst our friends and our loved ones. So yeah.
It's a realignment for me. So often it's like whatever happened throughout the week, what's ultimately and eternally true about me and about God and about what he's doing, worship does that in a powerful way. And one more note, as you were talking, I was just thinking about like, it's easy to approach church very consumeristic and being like, well, it's not speaking to me, or I don't feel the same way. And so it feels like I'm just not receiving the product that I want. And we can slip away in those seasons. But one of the ways that we've warped church is that we've made it this item, this thing that we consume when thinking about like, man, we're called to contribute and be a part of what God's doing. And there are so many ways to serve and to give back and to not sit and fill a seat, but to be a part of helping and serving and opening up doors for people, like literally or figuratively inside of Sunday morning. So I'd say like, if you're struggling with getting out of bed and going to church, I think one of the most powerful things you can do is to find a way to shift this, to flip the script, to be like, okay, how can I serve today? And like to be needed and to help other people can be a really helpful practice that you might find like, oh, this is what was missing, that I'm not just made to consume, but to contribute. And I think finding a way that you can give back can be something that can reignite that spark that might have been gone as well. And hey, when you're not there, like the full body of Christ isn't there because all the gifts and abilities are not present and active. So don't make a habit out of just missing because you don't feel it. Because there might be something powerful God wants to do through you and through your active service for somebody else, and they might miss it, and everybody misses out.
Well, that is it for this episode of Atypical Talk. If you have any topics or questions, you can send those to atypicaltalkpod@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Atypical Talk Pod, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to get updates when new episodes go live. We hope that these conversations today have helped you think wider, love deeper, and partner with God to bring the up there down here in your everyday life. Thanks for listening.
Wait, did we just give everybody permission to skip Easter? No!